Just hang out a sec, setting up the broadcast link. Okay, Steve, you can go ahead and start the meeting.
All right, I call this meeting to order. We're going to expedite this morning a little bit. We got to talk fast. George doesn't have a power cord. First order of business would be approval of the minutes from the May 5th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Gary?
Okay. Motion by Naylor, seconded by Childs. Naylor,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Childs.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty. Item 1 on the agenda, Grisco 39 Stan Ridge. This will be a public hearing. It concerns the demolition of a house. And I have a historic report from Prospectus here. I'll do a little summation. The house was built in 1949. It was deemed by Prospectus not to have any historical significance. Did not meet any of the major requirements. Nondescript dwelling. 39 Stan Ridge Road does not meet the standards of historically significant property, although it is over 50 years old. The proposed changes would not have an adverse effect on the historical significance of the house because it's not historically significant. The proposed changes to 39 Stan Ridge Road would not have an adverse effect on the approximate historically significant structures in the area as well. We'll take a look at least the preliminary proposals to replace this house. At this time, I would open comments to the public for their input, if there is any.
Christy, do we have anybody that wants to speak to this matter?
Yes, I promoted Mr. Fazio and Mr. Grisco to become panelists.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chuck.
Morning.
Morning.
Hi, Chuck. Did you want me to?
Do we have to approve the HSR though?
Very good point.
I move to approve. I move that the HSR report has been reviewed by the board.
I second it.
Childs,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Naylor.
Yes.
Okay.
The report is received, and now we will open the comments to the public.
Would you like me to present? Is that this time?
Go ahead, Chuck. I'm not sure we have public comment right away, and if you could lay it out, that would be helpful.
Sure. Well, the Griscos are the clients that have been interested in moving to Chagrin Falls for about four or 5 years. One of their objectives was so that they could have at least a home that they would enjoy, that they could walk directly down to Chagrin Falls. Going through several different homes that somewhat fell through or didn't seem to work out, they were able to locate this property that looked like it possibly could be demolished, and then we could provide a beautiful home on the site. So our objective here was to, obviously a tight site, to try to get the program requirements that the owners wanted within the site, and still try to keep the integrity of what Chagrin Falls is. I've been here a long time in the area, grew up in Solon and know Chagrin pretty well, and I have done several projects in Chagrin. So we're trying to keep the vernacular of what is already going on here in the village. as you'll see in some of the elevation perspectives later. So anyways, one of the biggest things we did, and it doesn't show on this site plan, but I think this will work if I redlined my drawing to give you an idea of where the present existing house is in relationship to the new house that we're providing. So we're trying to move it back about 28 feet back from where the existing is to open up that property a little more than what it is presently.
A little higher, please.
How's that?
That's good. Thank
If
you.
everyone, if I could interject, there's an option when someone is holding up a piece of paper like that, there's an option on your screen to go to speaker view opposed to gallery view, and it expands the screen so you can see it a little bit bigger.
Do I need to hold that back up for anybody?
I saw it.
Yep, I saw it.
I saw it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just thought that would help you relate to what we're trying to
Yeah.
do.
Yes, thank you.
We were even trying to get the property just to the south of here, where it says grading number 970 there, additional property, so that we could move it back even farther. But we were unable to pick up any additional acreage from the neighbor who owns that. So, and that's a huge lot there. The back part of this property is really, there are no houses back here at all. So very tricky to try to site this house, but to give it some kind of curb appeal that would still look nice with the community is what we've tried to do. Go ahead.
Chuck, I just wanted to talk a little bit about this, the site plan here. You and I had a discussion about the side yard setback last week. And I talked to our planner about it as well. I know this lot is kind of tricky, but somehow we're gonna have to you're gonna have to turn that house or make it comply with that a 14-foot side yard setback to give you the total of 28. Or maybe move the house forward. I think that south property line there, you're showing it right at the 10-foot.
Right.
So we're gonna have to either
We can-
tweak that a little better.
We can do that. The problem is obviously that I didn't want to bring it closer to the street.
Right.
Because of that. So because it has 6 sides to this property, we felt that you could make the 14-foot setback on the house that's on the corner of North Street, because the house would affect that house more than any other house. So anyways, that's what our thinking was.
Okay.
It really doesn't specifically say in your code what side has to be 14 feet.
No, it just said you gotta have to come up with somehow, you gotta come to that total of 28.
Well, I still do with the left side and the right side.
Okay. Well, we can discuss that later.
Right.
I just want to bring that to your attention. Then the last comment I have is the impervious surface coverage in the front yard. We have to make sure we're not exceeding that 25% impervious surface coverage where you're parking your car.
Yeah, we haven't calculated that yet, but I'm sure we can meet within that. As far as the lot coverage, we're way within what it allows.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Okay. Thank you. That's all I have to say on the zoning aspect.
Okay.
Harry, this is Christy.
Yes,
There's an attendee that has their hand raised in the Zoom meeting. Do we allow public comment at this time if anyone would like to speak, or does that come later in the meeting?
That would leave that up to the chairman. Usually they'll allow them to speak during the public hearing.
Yes, go ahead. It may be pertinent to the situation now.
Okay, let me address Jody Haas has her hand raised. I've unmuted Jody. Jody, can you hear us?
Yes, I can, but I'm here with my, and so we live across the street at 20 Stanridge, and he has some comments to make and questions. Can I speak?
Good morning. I guess because I'm a neighbor across the street, I'm on the down slope of the street. I have several concerns about.
For the record, could you please state your first and last name and your address, please?
My name is Henry Piper. I live at 20 Stanridge, which is shown on the site plan at the top of the site plan.
Thank you, Mr. Piper.
My concern really, I'll tell my story as quickly as I can. When the house next door, across the street, number 45 Stanridge, was demolished and rebuilt, I reviewed the drawings, and I did not notice that Rudy Schwartz, the surveyor who prepared the topography plan, eliminated the ditch and the culvert under the new driveway. Okay, and so I didn't realize the effect of that, which would be to dump the water across the street when we get a very heavy rain. Okay, and so the water flows, which would be to the north, and it overtops the street and it ends up in my yard, where it's actually washing my yard away. With this proposed home, which obviously is two homes smooshed together, it's a very large building and it has a very large impervious surface. I am concerned. There is, in fact, a culvert which crosses from south to north, which dumps water onto my property, which I installed a pipe to capture that water. That culvert is a steel culvert and must be original with the street, and is currently about half crushed and rusted away. I installed a concrete Band-Aid on this culvert because the edge of the road was breaking off and falling into this catchment area. What I would like, if I must see, if I must have this very large home, which really should be in Hunting Valley on a 5-acre lot, what I would like to see is not one drop of water come from this site over to the other side of the street. And so I would like to see a storm water management plan which captures all the water in their very large drive areas and dumps it into their rear southerly ravine, which is where 45 Stanridge does dump that water there. But when they built their house, they elevated it 3 feet because they were chasing a sewer invert that they didn't need to, because they weren't smart enough to realize there was a manhole in front of the house, a sanitary manhole that they could have tied into. And so because this home, I will tell you, there's no great information on it, but I'm sure they will elevate this building, and so it will pitch to the north, which will dump the water into a ditch that's not there, and to a culvert that is collapsed, and it'll end up in my yard. So my simple request is that there be a comprehensive storm management plan which will collect all the water and dump it into the southerly ravine, which is on their property, and it's a harmless ravine because it's not occupied, and that ravine dumps into the Metro Park land where there won't be any damage. Those are my thoughts.
Henry, I'll take those comments and make sure that we follow a SWAT plan for you, and I'll convey your comments to the engineer.
Thank you, Harry.
You're welcome.
Right. So is that it for the public hearing? Should we, do we need to actually close the public hearing, right?
Well, we were going through Mr. Fazio's presentation, and there was a pertinent comment and we took it. So I think it's back to Chuck now.
Okay, I don't know if there are any other questions on the site in particular, but we could move on to the perspectives. Let's see if I can. Let's see.
Steve, you have the prospectuses report.
There you go. Yeah, if you could bring that up just to the front perspective.
Oh, you want the front elevation?
Yes. Right there. There you go. So that would be your view from the front. We're trying to create some kind of architectural detailing here that again meets the community. It is a larger home, but it kind of gives you the feeling of a Western Reserve style home that would be built all over Cleveland. Some people called this the colonial revival period, which was a kind of a mixed bag of many different styles that were brought to America from European and American different styles together. But I would classify this as a pure colonial revival design. It would have natural stone. It would have clapboard siding, copper bays, and again, if there's any questions on what that might be, but you could look at the next elevation, which represents the back view, which is looking toward all that open site area back there, and there's a little ravine back there. It's a beautiful site. Gives them a patio and a lot of glass in the back so that they can bring light into the house. Mrs. Grisco enjoys having a lot of extra light because of a condition that she has. So she's trying to bring as much clear light as we can to the site. And if you go to the next elevation, our perspective, that would be the opposite side with a covered patio here, an open porch where they could grill, and to the right side, that's the side of the garage there. You can go on to, I don't know if there's anything else to really preview with this being a preliminary. The plans, I don't know if you want to go through the plans now or until somebody has a question or.
Yeah, no, that's probably okay. I mean, we can ask questions if we have questions.
Sure.
Does the public have any questions?
Steve, I do not see any hands raised from any attendees.
Okay.
If any attendee would like to comment, please use the raise your hand function on the Zoom webinar.
Just for the record, I did send notices out to adjacent property owners. I did hear from the property owner next door. He had no comments. And I did have a conversation with Mr. Piper as well. So those are the only two people I've spoken with.
Great.
It appears we have no other public comments at this time.
Okay. Does our panel have a discussion for the preliminary drawings?
I very much like this house design. I think it's well thought out. I think the style of the house, I think this street is eclectic. So to some degree, this is a more traditional house than many of the houses on the street, but they're quite new houses by and large. And I certainly think in and of itself, the house is attractive and it is consistent, probably not with, the historic center of Chagrin, but I think in this spot, in this place, I like it. I am, my only negative on this really is that driveway layout. I think I don't like it. I think there's a way more efficient way to do that probably and that goes to Mr. Piper's water concerns as well. I think the, consolidating that somehow or making it a little more efficient would help to reduce the runoff potential for the site, as well as, there's that 25% maximum. But I think it's a really nice house plan and design. I love the perspectives that Chuck did.
Thank you.
I agree. This is Bill Childs. I think it's a very well done solution for a difficult site. I think floor plan works very well. I also think that overall composition is a beautiful composition with the materials, the massing proportions. So I'm definitely in favor of the preliminary plan approval.
I'll chime in with an agreement on that. And Henry Piper's and his comments with respect to the amount of impervious soil or pavement. I think it could be done with less and not detract from the property. And I agree with them. We have a tremendous amount of difficulty with water everywhere in Chagrin, and to add any one drop of water off of this site onto the street going north, it needs to be avoided.
Chuck, what's the square footage on this house?
The first and second floor is, well, 6193 inside dimensions, and that excludes the garage.
Okay.
One of the designs for the driveway was where we came in and just kind of looped around instead of having a second loop in there. But we were trying to get around. There's a fire hydrant and a telephone pole right in the middle of that lot, which is a little unfortunate. But and there was also an option of the neighbor, which would be to the west, of picking up a little more acreage from him and maybe bringing the driveway in around there, which would give us a little more green space in the front. I don't know if that's still an option with the owners or not yet, but we really haven't studied that driveway. We just wanted to get them into their garage and obviously a place where they could get to their front door. So I think that could be reduced, but.
Okay, preliminary.
Right.
I'm hearing notes of approval for the design and the preliminary stage, and I'm not hearing any detrimental comments about the demolition of this house. I move to approve demolition of the house at 39 Stan Ridge.
Second.
So a motion by King, seconded by Childs for demolition. Naylor,
Yes.
Childs,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
okay.
Moving along, we sort of had this all-in-one discussion this morning. I move for preliminary approval of the plans.
I second.
Can we add a comment about study of the driveway configuration, or is that?
I need to restudy the driveway configuration and also that side yard setback.
And the drainage should be addressed, yes.
Correct.
Can you guys repeat that? You wanted to restudy the driveway configuration and side yard?
Yeah, just the side yard setback. It's got a.
Oh, and then I thought Steve said something else.
In
And
consideration
drainage
to the water
question would
runoff?
be
Oh, and
addressed
the
by
drainage.
engineer.
Okay, all right, thank you.
okay, Naylor,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Childs.
Yes.
Okay, preliminary approvals approved. No comments.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Chuck.
Thanks.
Moving on to 92 North Main Street.
Yes, I've allowed the presenters to speak. They've all called in through phone. If I am looking at this properly and will not be on video.
Okay.
Daniel, can we do a sound check for you? Dean, a sound check.
Dean, I'm here.
Scott?
Yes, good morning.
And Dean, Daniel, once again?
Sorry about that. I'm here. Thank you.
Okay, all three are on. Thank you.
Harry, is there an introduction you might do for us here?
Sure. So this is 92 North Main Street. It's the Huntington National Bank. It's the former Sassy Cat building that everybody is familiar with. What happened here is the building was already sided in aluminum siding, and they decided to re-side the building and then do some replacement windows. And unbeknownst to me, I came along and saw the work ongoing in that. So I got a hold of the folks from the bank and the general contractor and had them, submit stuff to us, and this is where we're at. Unfortunately, by the time I got to the bank to see what was going on, the work was like 3/4 of the way done. So they did have the replacement windows in. I think I sent you pictures on the windows and stuff like that. And with that, I'll turn it over to you folks.
What's the status of the work now? Is it complete?
Looks pretty done to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the work is complete. This is Dave.
It's unfortunate we weren't in on this. It's this building was a little bit pregnant, I would say, in terms of atrocities of the past. And Huntington has done such a magnificent job on the, I assume it's your main building on the corner there, maintaining the history of that building. And this building in its past had a similar history and appearance, and it's been bastardized by several people along the way. I think we might go to the historical prospectus at this time. They gave us the history of the building, built in 1846. Several photographs show what it was. That old road building fits in with hardware and extends to Rick's and so forth. It was a gem, and it hasn't been a gem in a while, but it hasn't. It has such a plastic look to it, and that's plastic is what vinyl windows are all about. It would have been a great time to turn back some of that abuse with the new siding being something different than what is there. The findings were, as usual, Prospectus doesn't care for aluminum or vinyl siding, or certainly for vinyl windows. We would have been able to tell you when drawing a permit, these things that we're telling you now after the not somewhat after the fact. The question is, to what degree, if any, do we attempt to undo the re-bastardization of this house, building? The windows in particular could have been really improved on. The windows that were there were odd and kind of cute in their own funny 50s, 60s kind of way, but now we're reloading for another several decades at least, and it's a shame. The board and batten type stuff, the vertical siding, and the let's just say economical style of the new siding is very unappealing.
I think Perspectus makes a good point about the proper way to deal with non-historic windows in a historic structure and how to correctly redo those. So that path clearly was not followed here, and probably due to not understanding it.
I mean, this building is in a National Register district, which is what I look at as a higher level of scrutiny when we try to evaluate a building. This puts us in a very difficult situation because I do not want the word on the street to become, oh, just go ahead and do it. And then, you know, I don't know how else to say it, beg for forgiveness later. I don't want to set that kind of precedent. And I think it's really unfortunate we're here where we are right now. But if this, I think we have to look at this as if the project was coming in before the work was done. And we would have, I would have been of the opinion that you would go towards, at the very least, an aluminum siding, and to get more of the detail back into the building, but really towards a hardy board like Perspectus has suggested, and go towards more of an aluminum clad or wood window. And I mean, I understand the difficulty of this, but I still am the opinion that this work is not the type of work that I would approve.
I agree. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Bill.
This is a really important building. It's downtown. Whatever we decide on right now is going to be, that's what it's going to be probably for another 100 years. This building should really have Pella Reserve windows, which are windows that were taken from the national, I'm losing my train of thought, but windows that were designed with Secretary of Interior Standards, sorry, those type of windows. And I would never, ever put vinyl siding on, if you had the opportunity on a building like this, especially it looks like it's embossed, which makes it even look more cheap and ridiculous. We don't want Chagrin Falls to go down. You want to have the chance and opportunity to dress it up, and that you could work on those returns and get classical details and get what it should have been back in the day, the rake trims, the stools, you shouldn't just have J channels around the windows. They should have good casing. They should have a stool, an apron, corner boards. I mean, this is, I don't know. I think this is really a disgrace to have this continue.
I do agree, and I especially, I think the windows are very important. The siding is important, but also I would include the trim details. And I don't know if they've been replaced, but in an overall redo of this, I think the trim and details, the returns on the gable, the rake should be looked at, and it should be done responsibly in a as accurate a manner as possible, with an eye to its form or appearance, obviously.
I had a question. When they did the other building, I heard that they owned another building and redid it. Is that correct? Or I'm not familiar.
That's next door, Bill, a bank building right on the corner.
Did they pull a permit and go through this process on that building?
Yes, they did. That was under the state of Ohio and stuff like that. That building has actually been reworked quite a bit.
Yeah, it's
building inside a building.
I was actually, Henry Piper was the architect, and I was the contractor when it was redone in the early 90s. And then when Huntington bought it from Ohio Bank, I guess, or however that transition, they came back through and worked with Henry, I think, again, and did a very nice job of sort of continuing the restoration on that building.
Yeah, there was discussion at one point that building on the corner, the bank building, would be demolished as the Sassy Cat building as well, and then a larger complex
Right.
developed. And that was a big moment. Chagrin Falls Preservation was active in trying to stop that. So, I mean, I've always been complimentary of what the bank did with the building. That it's had some alterations, but its Greek revival features are somewhat there. And, you know, the Sassy Cat is just an important part of the streetscape in that area of town. And so I do think this is an opportunity, and I asked procedurally how we go. I looked at the application, which states that they're going to do siding and window, I think window replacement to look just like existing materials. I'm not sure where we go from here. Do we ask for a plan for new siding, and where are we on windows? Sometimes we look at windows, sometimes we don't. How do we proceed?
So since they did this work without any permits, we have the ability to, you know, ask them to revise and resubmit, give the bank some direction on windows, siding. You know, unfortunately, it's been recited. If you feel that hardy board siding is more appropriate, then, you know, they're going to have to, they've learned a lesson. So
I think it's important that we insist upon, well, first of all, we deny approval and insist upon some plan going forward that will help contribute to the architecture in Chagrin instead of detracting from it, and that Huntington Bank, I believe, wants to be a good citizen, and will make an effort to, I look forward to them making an effort to get us some push or respond to our comments and try to rectify the situation that clearly somebody misunderstood what was going on, or why they or that we cared. I don't know exactly how a corporation this size misses this, but anyway, I think we need to deny approval and have them come back with a plan, find somebody, an architect that can offer them some consulting information, or their own architects, someone that can help them kind of put this right.
I think we need a motion. I guess I'll move to approve all the additions and changes that they've done. And we can go from there. I would like to entertain a second.
Oh, second.
okay, so we have a motion by King, seconded by Naylor, to approve the alterations that have been done. Naylor?
No, with a request that a plan be presented for siding and window replacement.
A total plan, I would think you're.
A total
Plan for refacing the structure.
Yes.
King?
No.
Childs?
No, and I would add to, and maybe this covers what Wendy said, but detail the returns, the rakes, corners, and make sure all the details are correct.
Yeah.
Does anybody from the Huntington Bank want to speak to this?
Well, this
Yeah,
is
this is-
Dean, the contractor.
Any of the three of you?
This is Dean. When we started the work, that's when everything hit with the pandemic and shut down. So I thought that Chagrin Falls, or the village of Chagrin Falls, as well as the other building departments were closed. So in the meantime, we took it upon ourselves to begin the work, and I tried also to get a hold of Elizabeth Balick over at the Building Code Compliance down in Columbus. I got nowhere with that. I couldn't leave a message. It said they were working remotely, and there's tried numerous times trying to get a hold of Elizabeth and failed. So we went ahead and basically took the siding down and put back as was. I'm going to go back on what we took photos wise as far as any details that we did or did not do, but from the work that we did, the building looks the same as it did, other than the vinyl clad windows that we put in that look similar to what was there. And I don't remember any details on rakes or peaks or valleys or anything when we went ahead and put the vinyl siding. The only thing that I see that we did was take the aluminum siding down and installed vinyl siding. So to me, the building looks as it did before we started, other than the materials that were used are different.
Yeah, the coronavirus certainly threw everybody for a loop, and the state of Ohio certainly shut down. The village of Chagrin did not.
Well, once I talked with Harry, he made it clear that he was there every day. And then once we figured all that out, I had the paperwork since February before we started this. And then, like I said, the pandemic hit and everything shut down. So once Harry approached me, I submitted all the paperwork that was required, but in the meantime, we had started the project, yes. And I also tried, again, numerous times to get a hold of Elizabeth Balick down in Columbus. I couldn't leave a message. There was no answering machine. It just told me that they were working remotely, and I didn't get anywhere as far as pulling a permit from the state of Ohio. So we just went ahead and did the work, basically, is what I'm saying. But from what I see, all we did was change out the materials from the aluminum siding that they had to vinyl siding, replaced the wood-clad windows with vinyl-clad windows. I mean, for me to be a maintenance-free building for Huntington Bank. So here we are.
Here we are. Okay.
Well, I would just want to point out going forward, just so there isn't any confusion with the next plan, is you would want to look to the historic appearance of the building, not replicating what was there before you made the alterations, but you would want to take it towards, once you touch a section of the building, that opens the door to take it back to the historic features of the building. So that would be your goal going forward.
So you want me to go back to
I believe
beyond the aluminum siding?
Yes. So
what it looked like originally?
Yes.
Yes.
Or a reasonable facsimile, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There have been changes over the years, but I think there were some good photos in the perspective report to give you some guidance. And they also have some good suggestions about moving towards a hardy board siding or wood. And I would suggest wood windows or aluminum clad windows.
And architects should be involved in this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Bill mentioned this earlier with respect to using Pella's preservation windows, and we all speak about this all the time, but excuse me, what's who's the contractor? What's your name?
This is Dean Oriani, DRO Ltd.
Dean. So
yes,
when we look at an old building that that has aluminum siding on it, and it's time to replace the siding or replace the windows. What we're attempting to do is push back, like Wendy said, to regain some of the losses that were made in the 50s and 60s when this aluminum siding was put on this building, so that we can pull it back towards its historic nature. And when you take a window out of an existing wood sash out of a wall, and you slip in a vinyl window, you have completely changed the look of that window, the actual sash itself and the frame that goes with it. And the only real way to replace a wood window, or even a window that's been put back in the opening subsequent to the original window, is to pull it out and pull the frame out and replace it with a new window that matches the character and scale of the window that was originally in the building. So what we're asking you to do is help us get some of that character back. And it starts with understanding what we're asking for, and then asking us again whether this is what we want, or this is what we think. And that means hiring somebody to put together a proposal, some sketches, some details, or some cut sheets, so that we understand where we're going to go.
Mhm.
Redo this building again, and continue where we've left off, basically.
It's sort of like, if this was an electrical job, we would be bringing you up to code. This is an architectural bringing you up to code, I guess.
Yeah. And I guess you've
Okay.
already voted, right?
We voted.
I call the roll.
I think we did.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Okay, do we need to revise and resubmit on this, or shall we just go?
I think you've given direction.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Dean, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All righty, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to 54 Church Street. Resubmission from October 1st of last year.
Mr. John Stott has been invited to the discussion as a panelist. I see your video. John, will you give us a mic check?
Yes, this is John Stott.
Very good, thank you. I do not see that the optional attendees, Corey and Haley Stock, are on the line. If you are, I see a hand raised. Hold on, please.
I was, oh, there's,
Yeah, I'm on mine.
there's Corey.
Corey, I'm promoting you to a panelist. Join the discussion.
Harry, maybe you can just remind the board where this ended up last time.
So yeah, they were in front of you last October for this addition and portico on the north side of the house. And I think you guys had some comments. I don't have the minutes in front of me from October. And now they're back in front, seeking a final approval.
Do we have pictures of the house as reference?
I don't know if I have pictures with this submission or not.
Do we have presenters?
We do have
Yes.
presenters. Maybe John Stopp can walk you through it a little bit.
Yeah, I can bring you up on the history of where we're at. Obviously, the Garlicks wanted to put an addition on their home. They're looking at adding a master suite, enlarging their kitchen, putting a morning room to give them some view off the back of the property. And they wanted to have a 2-car garage at the time when we first started. We probably gone through this a few times in the preliminary stages of working through the massing. We added a few gables and bumped out the master suite and the morning room on the south elevation, and added a gable on the north elevation just to break up the mass. We had, I don't know if you remember, a relatively large 2-car garage as well. And a lot of the comments that was there was it was blocking the view of the garage in the back of the property, detached garage. So after working with the homeowner, he kind of agreed to go to the carport just to give them a place to put the cars under cover. And that seemed to be the, I guess the focus of the last meeting was more the carport. And we worked back and forth with the homeowner, and he really wants to keep his carport as large as he can, the footprint of the vehicles. On the north property, we're pretty much maxed. We can't go any farther to the north side of the property. And so east and west, which would be the depth of the carport, he wanted to keep as large as he could, because it's 22 feet right now, and it's 10 foot to the underside of the beam, which I'm sure you're still going to get some sun and some rain still comes at that angle. But he really didn't want to move it any farther forward towards the street, because if you look at the site plan, it kind of tight for them to come in and to get both cars under there. And then they didn't want to take the carport and block any more of the windows moving forward. I know Bill and George were both discussing in their last comments about, Bill suggested making the carport a little less deep so that we can get the columns inside. And the homeowner just really didn't want to do that, because what you had proposed was more like a 14-foot in depth, and that just really wasn't going to cover the cars for their liking. So that's kind of where we're at. If you have any questions on it, I'm glad to answer them.
Harry, can you show us that side of the elevation?
The north side.
Can you, John, can you describe, we've got double windows on the house. Do they have that same double peak detail? Are you really exactly matching the window surround detail of the existing house?
Yes. Yeah, that's the existing detail. It's pretty ordinary, but that's what's there.
Right. And I mean, I think this is such a better solution than the big garage. I mean, I don't have a real problem with it. I know, and Bill, you may remember your thoughts on it more clearly. Looking at it again, I mean, I would approve it. I think it's really doesn't create any issues. And as a large rear-facing addition, I mean, I think the addition is handled very nicely. At least the carport doesn't kind of add to the visual weight or massing of the addition.
I agree. I think practicality has to rule in some fashion, and this is a much better solution than trying to put a drive-through garage on and all the other additions that we saw before. And sure, you know, the porte cochere or whatever this is, if it was 14 feet, it would be simply, it would be better scale, but I understand that this is not, we're not driving up and unloading people and then the next car comes up to the porte cochere. So this is really a place to park your car, an open garage, whatever. And I don't have any objection to. I think the addition is so nicely done and gone a long way from the original proposals, and they've done everything we've asked in terms of kind of pushing and pulling, and it's time to get this thing built.
I agree.
I look at the minutes from October last year, and the only real comment you guys had, you thought the portico was too large. It was at 21 feet at that time and suggested to reduce it. So other than that, your comments, you gave it a preliminary approval. So
For my part, I would relent on that comment.
This is Bill Childs. I think John, you did a great job on the addition. I think massing wise, proportions, fenestration, materials, I think it all looks great. My only concern, like it was last time, is this carport is massive. And what I'm concerned about, especially, you see these columns here, you have a repetition, and you have an entablature right here. It's right here. And if you go over here, you have an entablature, and then you have a beam that's, what is that, 20 feet long? It just seems from a historical standpoint really odd when you're looking at this elevation and you have this repetition and how these columns go, and then you have this massive long beam with these couple columns, and then it doesn't really die into anything. It kind of dies here, kind of odd versus, a form that it would die into. But that's my only comment. I'm not a fan of the portico share, but I think you did a great job on the addition.
Yeah, and I'd love to put a column in the middle of that, but that's going to be right where their doors are when they open, and it's going to be extremely tight to get 2 cars in there. And obviously east to west, I can't put another column in there because they need that width to get through it. So it's just the nature of its function.
I agree with Bill. I don't particularly care for how this juts out of this building. I'm recalling the building that used to be the Reed Nichols Funeral Home. It's now the Historical Society that had a porte cochere sticking out of the end of it. I do think it's improved from where we started, but I just don't feel it is compatible with this historic building. And yeah.
What if we added 2 columns, kind of an ABA, so the columns are a little closer together on each end, a little wider in the middle?
So it had like more of a porch-like appearance. Yeah.
Well, maybe, and yeah. I mean, well, it might capture that rhythm if you pan the drawing a hair. You could see what, the distance those porch columns are apart. So kind of like match that off each end. I think the one set, the door is way back there, but it kind of relates to the door. The other one could kind of relate to the other side of that table.
I just don't think that looks right when east and west, I'm going to need that whole opening to get the 2 cars in. There's not going to be any space to put an additional column. We're so tight on the north property line.
I'm only talking about this, like this elevation, John. I do understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Do you think that'll look right though on the north elevation, having, multiple columns and, east and west elevations, that you're going to have that same span?
You don't
I think
really
it's
have
okay the
this
way it is,
view.
honestly.
This is Bill Childs again. I think if you added the 2 columns here to get, let me just do this here, like this repetition you have here, and maybe you do it here, add 2 more columns as long as it doesn't hit your door. And then what I would do is there's a book called Get Your House Right on page 40, which is this book right here. I don't know if you can see this, but you have that book?
Yeah.
There's a chart here that tells you exactly how deep the entablature should be, and the height of the column tells you the width of the column, so it looks like it stays in proportion with because you don't want to be the same as the porch, because the porch is a different height and a different entablature. This is a longer span and a longer column, so as long as you're in proportion, I would be happy if you put 2 columns here and then get your scale of your entablature and your columns correct.
What do you think about larger columns and not adding the two, deeper entablature, beef the columns up a little, but don't add the two in the middle?
And I think that's a long, long span for,
Right, but
I mean,
visually.
yeah, I think it's going to look odd, even if you do that. I mean, it'd have to be really deep and really fat columns, which I don't think then you start to get out of this style of architecture.
Closes the house next door. Can you really,
What did he say?
looking at this drawing, we're standing in the middle of the house next door maybe or something? Can you really get far enough back to appreciate all that we're talking about now?
Right.
Purely speculative, I ask that question. Do you have to be 50 feet back plus in order to see all that we're talking about? Because these are pretty tight houses on that street.
I agree, but I tell you what, I do a lot of my phone calls walking around the neighborhood, and from a perspective, walking down the sidewalks and stuff, you could definitely see all this.
Between the houses.
Correct.
I can see, Bill, your point, of adding that column on the north elevation. I'm not sure then that relates to the east and west, it's gonna be that same length. And, even if I make the depth of the beam, the entablature larger, you're still not gonna be the same proportion when I turn that corner. So I think it's more, be more correct, like George is saying, if we make that column a little thicker, and just keep the two, but I know that it's extremely tight. I wish I had 5 more feet to the north and we could, stick a column in the middle on the east and west elevation so both cars can get through, but I don't have that luxury.
Gotcha.
I mean, I'm curious how the board feels if we said, work on the proportions. So deeper entablature, wider columns, and run with that. Maybe it's worth voting on that for the sake of these guys, so that we can see if that flies, and then we could get them building.
Could you explain deeper entablature for me?
The beam over the columns, because it's running further and also relates to a taller column. The beam has a proportionate relationship with the column width that's on page 40.
Long and skinny. Yeah. Got it.
Yeah, I mean, if you just need to increase the proportions, I mean, I'll be willing to do that. I know that the homeowner is extremely anxious to get this project finally moving, and it seems like we've done the majority of things to get us to this point.
There's a middle ground here where you can, start your engines, and we need to see the entablature and 1 or 2 column presentations, perhaps, but you can start the overall project anyways. What's your first, when you start this, where are you starting? Demolition or?
You'll have to ask the contractor. I'm not sure with the homeowners, if they had a plan yet on if they're gonna stay there during this or what their plan is. I don't think they're on, are they? Do you know if the?
Yeah, John, I'm on.
Okay, Corey, here's Corey. He can answer that for you.
Yeah, we would start completely. Start with demolition, removal of the previous or the existing sunroom in the back of the house, digging out the foundations. I mean, normal process. So everything would be included.
I got a question. Can you give them approval for the addition? I mean, that looks perfect and beautiful, and I think that's great. And then have them come back for this last piece, because it looks like it's something can be taken off or tacked on or taken off.
Can I ask a question? If what I'm hearing is we can move forward with the design of the porte cochere to be an increased tablature, the beam height, right? maybe looking at some column placements to kind of make it look more like, say, the porch. I would be open to that as long as in the entry point of that portico shade, there's no beams that would allow or obstruct a car entering. I'd be okay with it being on the backside because there's no intention to drive through per se. I'd be okay with it on the side as long as it doesn't obstruct, door entry, and we can figure that out, John. But if you guys are saying yes to the portico shade, I'd be willing to make some revisions to it. Make sure it aligns, because I'd rather have approval on everything prior to starting than partial approval, because this, if you remember when we started the process, this is a critical part of the overall project. We started with the garage. The historical report stated it had no significant impact on the historical nature of the actual home. The biggest issue was the line of sight to the barn and carriage home, and we actually appreciated that too. We want to see it, hence why we went with this design and made a major change to it. This allows to have a sight line to the carriage home in the back, which is important to us. So, but this is an important part of the overall project for us. So.
Can you guys give preliminary or approval to the portico share with the final detailing to be approved later? I think what Corey might be getting at is he doesn't want to come back in and be halfway through his project and have us say you can't have a portico share.
Correct.
Because that would, I think, not be fair to that.
I know we can do that, and Wendy will make this motion now.
I move for final, this is a final, right?
Yeah.
I move for final approval of the addition plans and portico share with portico share as presented, with details on column details and entablature, column and entablature details to be revised and resubmitted?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Perfect. Nice job. I second that.
Joan, you have all those comments?
Yes.
I missed the last part of it, the column detail, and what was the?
Entablature, column and entablature.
The skinny beam.
The skinny beam.
The skinny beam, okay. I'm gonna write that in the minutes.
LA.
Skinny beam, okay. Thank you.
Okay, motion by Naylor, seconded by King. Childs?
One more comment. Does that include trying to add some columns when you say that comment?
Oh.
Addressing the columns, I think you said.
Column details and explore additional columns. The addition of
That
columns.
makes it clear, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Bill.
Got that, Joan?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and so you're okay just on the north elevation, just so I'm correct with you guys, is that we're not talking east and west or?
Right.
Okay.
Okay, we'll try this again. Motion by Naylor, seconded by King. Childs?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Naylor?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
86 West Street. The awning discussion, final.
So Steve, let me give you a little background on this. I think Rick Siegfried will be presenting this, but this was in front of you folks last fall as well. And the awnings were on the plans and they were approved. And then a high awning came back in at the last meeting with the same awning and they were denied. So I'm going to let Rick pick up from there.
Okay, good morning, everyone. The big issue is the awnings over right on that elevation right there. So originally we had proposed a single awning over the entry to the new showroom on the right, and you guys had approved that. For whatever reason, Jack, I can't remember his last name, from Ohio Awning came along to do this, thought he needed an ARB approval, didn't talk to anybody, brought this thing in. You guys said no. And it's like, well, part of it was already approved and part of it, I understand. So kind of what's happened is that as they've lived in this space, they've discovered that the two windows on the far left, so you can see where it says 86. So underneath that is an entry and that's recessed, and we don't really need an awning there. But over those two office windows, the awnings, they're pretty functional. The idea is to keep those two offices from boiling over during the day. It gets pretty hot in there, according to legend. So if you would go, Harry, to the west elevation, you got to get to the drawing part of it. There you go. No, up. The proposal is we've got that single awning that is over the showroom door. That's been approved. The lighting fixtures they've installed that you saw in the photo are a little different than these. And if you tried to go all the way across, you'd have a conflict. And just really want to call attention to the door there. And that's not a workspace. So nobody's as worried about the heat gain. On the left side there, we've got two awnings, which now essentially match the size and the rhythm of what's going on the other side. They're only over the windows. They're not over the entry parts. So all that nice trim work up there that I think you guys expressed concern about last time, which I agree with, is still largely visible, but it gives us, kind of a rhythm across the building on that elevation where we've got the three awnings. We've got the pergola in there, which is going to shade the sort of their sample room in the middle where they do a lot of their workroom. But so you got a nice little rhythm. You got an awning, you got an opening, you got an awning, you got the pergola, then you got an awning that matches the size of the other two. And it does give us a very functional use of that awning. It will block some sun coming in there late afternoon because this is West Street, which has nothing to do with the fact that these windows face due west, but they do. So that's kind of what we're after, and I hope you agree that it's a reasonable solution. And again, on this side, we've got the same couple awnings. So it seems consistent to let that go all the way around the two street side elevations.
I think I was part of the one saying that it would be nice to have a wider awning over that whole entry and showroom entry and the windows. But honestly, I don't feel that strongly about it. I do see that you've got the large light fixtures.
Right.
And those would conflict with a longer awning. And there is something to be said for the three awnings being the same scale on that elevation. So, and I also recognize that if we were looking at this before and we didn't make an issue of it, I know that it's fair or proper that we're making an issue of it now. I mean, so.
I apologize for the confusion. I had no idea he was coming in with that. And then, obviously when it got denied, the folks at W Design kind of got a little bit excited, justifiably so. And, the whole thing started. George, I think you even got a phone call from one of them, like, how do we fix this? But it was already happening.
The discussion was breaking the cornice line on the left side of the building.
Right.
So can you talk to me why you can't tuck it underneath the cornice, those awnings underneath the cornice?
Well, that's all applied flat. So there's a big piece of crown mold that runs across there. If we tuck it all the way underneath there at the head of the column where the beam, it is sort of applied to the building, it would really be too low. So we want to keep the height kind of consistent across there. And I promise you that ultimately the awnings will match, although they don't in the drawing. They'll either be all with a valance or none with a valance. So we tucked it up underneath that piece of crown mold because it seemed like an appropriate place for it to start and make it function and still, have some presence and match everything else that's going on in terms of its height, its size, and its scale.
Well, I agree. I think I might have filed the objection with Jim when he was presenting the awnings last week that it's breaking up that cornice, but I understand what you're doing, and I agree with George that we didn't see any problem with it last year, and we shouldn't see any problem with it this year.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think I wasn't here last year, so I can't really comment on last year, but I do think my opinion is that you're really losing a lot of great moldings and detail there and covering up with an awning. And if it really is to do with the sun, why wouldn't they just put shades in? That's what I have in my office here. I have shades on the west elevation. We just close them when the sun, plus the sun is relatively low, especially in the winter. And it's really, even in the summer, it's a low profile. But I mean, if that's what was already approved, I guess that's what we have to go with. But I think you're losing really a great opportunity to show off some nice architecture. I could see the awnings on the other ones, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's why we kept it just above the windows, and I knew you'd ask about the shades, and I thought the same thing. But really, when you close the shades, you lose your view, and the window's kind of gone, and it would be all afternoon, every afternoon when the sun shines. So let's see, that'd be 10 days a year. It just feels, I think it feels better to have them go all the way across. So.
I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve plans as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion by Naylor, seconded by King. Naylor,
Yes.
Childs,
Yes.
King.
Yes.
Okay, approved. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you all very much. Have a good day.
Tiny bubbles.
Okay, yeah. Now's when I walk out the door, right?
David.
Just jump in.
165 Sinlac Hills.
I've invited Mateos and Pat. Don't have your last name on the screen. Mateos, sound check, please.
This is Pat McCoska.
And Pat as well.
Yeah, this is Pat. Can you hear me?
Thank you. Yep.
And can you hear us? Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Great, thanks.
Great, thank you.
So we submitted this. We were in front of you a few weeks ago and took all your feedback into account. And with that, we'll turn it over to our architect, Pat McCoska.
Okay, so in view of the comments from our first submission, the resubmission shows a more traditional approach to the design of the addition, and in terms of the detailing and the scale, and an attempt made to break up the scale of that rear addition and reflect more what's happening in the plan. So and the plans were not submitted last time. This time around, I've submitted both the existing plan and the proposed plan. So if we can scroll back to the proposed plan right there, what you'll see is that the addition is adding space in the family room and in the kitchen area to provide a dining space. And what was the dining room in the front of the house becomes a home office or den area. And to differentiate those two functions, I've slightly bumped out the dining area. So in the elevation, there's a bit of a jog, and in addition, changed the roof form. So the dining area is defined by a gable end with the 12-12 pitch roof to match what's existing. And the expansion of the family room is characterized by a flat roof, and with the intent of kind of taking on the appearance of a sunroom, which was often a feature of these colonial revival homes. So it's comprised of those two components. And then on the left is a porch, which is off the kitchen and dining area. And the detailing of the, I think I mentioned last time, there's not a lot of detail to the house to emulate, but what I was able to pick off of from the front elevation were some porch details. So the railing at the deck in the back is essentially the details of the railing in the front of the house, and the pilasters that flank the bank of windows at the flat roof portion have the same dimensions and proportions as the columns at the front porch.
I think this is a very nice composition now, and I think it's successful. I think that's going to be the differentiation of those spaces, I think will add to the interior as well as the exterior.
I'll point out too that I've had some reservations about that higher roof form and how it would relate to the existing house. And once we studied it, it turns out that only one window is lost in that shed dormer at the second floor, and it's a bathroom window, which we can work around. I think there are ways we can get natural light into that space, but in so doing, we're not touching the existing bedroom windows, which are those paired double hung windows.
Yep.
So it gets away from any concerns about code and egress because we're not affecting those spaces.
You know, you've added the columnation, so that sunroom look around the family room extension. I think that's nice. It's, you know, the house doesn't have trim around the windows.
Right.
At the existing, which is a shame. I mean, I think you should feel free to add trim around the windows in the addition.
Well, yeah.
I don't know if you know, I mean, it may be better than matching, just because that's something that, you know, someday when windows are replaced, potentially that would happen to the main body of the house.
Well, I'm glad you pointed that out because that's something I struggled with, and I had a lot of conversations with George and Laura about that fact. If I had my druthers, I would have maybe composed the windows at the dining room addition a little differently. And I decided to take my cue from the existing house where the siding butts right up to the window and not group them tightly together with maybe a trim board between, but actually set those two windows that flank the double hung windows a little further out, and so that there's a little more siding, not just a little narrow band of siding. But I agree, there's certainly a way that could be redone with jam trim and a nice head trim detail, but it wouldn't be consistent with anything else in the house if
right.
Well, am I on? Yeah. It at least, I mean, what you're attempting to do by changing the configuration of the roof pitch on the rear and adding the pilasters to the sunroom, whatever that portion of the rear addition, I think you're basically impacting the whole rear of the house. And to my mind, why you know, you might as well do a proper job of the detailing, like George said, in hopes that at some point they'll go back to the front of the house and sort of bring it up to speed. To me, the addition with the circular window lacks any kind of character. I'm not a real fan of circular windows or round top windows, primarily because we don't spend the money to put the proper detail around those windows. And so I just think it needs more help, even if it's square stock, to try to add some character around those punched openings, including the round one.
Well, one way, I mean, I just want to say that I think this is on the right track. I mean, the round window's a little large, so it's not really traditional. The other hand, the house is not really that traditional either. I mean,
sure.
And it's a rear facing addition. I mean, I think the advantage of a maybe oversized circle window up there is that it's going to bring some nice light in.
Well,
And-
yeah, and we talked about not having any window up there, and I showed Mateos an alternate elevation with that not there, and they preferred to have the window there, and the idea of bringing light in.
Right.
No, I love the light. I love the light.
And better to have something from the exterior. I think having a window up there is far better from an exterior viewpoint than not having one. I just think, I mean, I'd give you the freedom maybe to do what you wanted on that rear elevation up high. You know, I don't know that that's ought to be something that we spend a lot of time, you know, redesigning for you. But you could also, if you trim those windows out the way they are, I kind of like the 4-window configuration, the 1-2-1. You could put that trim in, and if that got a little close between those windows, you could make that just a little panel area, you know, and keep it white, kind of make them a little bank together.
Right.
While still separating them inside, or do something. And that's all I've got. Talking too much.
Now, one thing I'll point out also is that the rake boards at that gable end there are essentially flush with the wall. There's no projection of that gable end. And I studied that too. I think, frankly, it looks a little better, but all the gable ends of the house have no overhangs. And if you scroll down to the elevation or the perspective, you'll kind of see that maybe a little better. Just wondering what your thought on that is.
It's tough to throw that in on houses like this that don't have it.
Right.
I would go with what you know, basically. I mean, to add that, this I'm not, I don't know, even more obvious that this is an addition. And
what about a 3-inch, like 2 2-bys, or 4.5-inch 3 2-bys, just a little, you know, cheated out so that it functionally doesn't have the real drawbacks of those flush gables.
Yeah, I would recommend that as well. Push it out just for water.
Yeah.
This is Bill Childs. I just had a few comments. I think from a massing and composition standpoint, I think this is successful. I like the way you did the pilasters and made that maybe look like an old porch that was filled in. My only comment would be, yeah, if you could add the trim, would make it go a long way. Although I understand your struggle with the existing, so you want to match the existing. I think as far as this area right here, I would pull these together and gang these like you did these 4 over here instead of having the siding between.
Which is actually how I started out.
Okay.
So yeah, I can kind of go back to that.
Yeah, so you have a 2-1 relationship, then you have these 4. And the only thing I'd say on this circle is maybe if you just added a circle here and then just did maybe 1 spokes, just to see what that looks like, just to give it a little more traditional sense. It's hard to draw on this computer, but other than that, I think it looks good and nice job, and I think it's a successful composition.
So the question remains, trimming out or not trimming out, as I hear.
Well, if you look at that rear elevation and you look at the shed dormer, the 2nd floor, and the window to the left on the 1st floor, that's exactly the way they are now. And if you go to the photograph of the rear elevation, you'll see the same thing. So that's already there. That's aluminum siding butting up to those existing original aluminum windows with basically no trim at the head or at the jambs. So I can study adding a certain amount of trim to the new windows at the new gable end, but it will be different than from the existing windows at the 2nd floor and that one off to the left at the 1st floor.
Yeah, and I think our intent was to try and kind of maintain the consistency.
So Steve, this is a preliminary review, so
Okay. I
They'll
guess
have to come back to you, so.
All right, this is a preliminary review.
I might say too that in thinking now about adding trim, I would probably want to think about the siding material then too. I tried to keep within the vocabulary of the aluminum siding, which is what's on the house now and what we intended to use on the walls of the new addition. With more elaborate trim around the windows, I'd be inclined to maybe think about hardy plank or something. But then again, that would be not consistent with the rest of the house. So it's kind of a quandary that I need some.
How old is the house?
direction on.
What is the age of the house?
I think about 85, George.
Yeah, 86.
Okay.
1986.
Thank you.
I mean, you might do that. You know, there'll be a day when you decide to swap out the aluminum siding.
Yeah.
I don't think hardy would be any more than new aluminum, because is actually kind of expensive to get these days. But I wouldn't see that as overly inconsistent. I feel like it's a better new material, and you could still match a line with the clapboard of the existing, and I don't think it would present an unduly dissonant appearance or jump out at you, anything like that. So,
Well, one advantage is there's not a lot of wall area, and there's no wall in the new addition that's directly in line with an existing wall. There's always a step or stagger or something to separate the two materials. And certainly the hardy board, you can adjust the exposure to match what's existing already.
I would move towards preliminary approval, noting clearly that trimming out these windows would make more attractive. The existing windows, both in the front and the back of the house, are coming down the bend in terms of replacement, I would think anyways. The hardy plank in this section, I guess at this point, maybe not, we're not requiring that, but we like that idea. And I think that's sufficient for preliminary approval.
Second.
Joan, you got all those comments?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, preliminary approval, motion by King, seconded by Naylor. King?
Yes.
Childs?
Yes.
Naylor?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All righty, thank you all.
All right.
Thanks very much.
Okay.
Okay. Howard Hanna's sign at 40 East Washington.
Dan Riley, I promoted you to a panelist. If you'd like to start your video, you're welcome to.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
And Jerry, if you are an attendee, if you could raise your hand. I don't see that Jerry is in attendance.
I hope Jerry is.
I have one call-in listener at number 440-992-8909. I'm going to unmute and ask you to identify yourself.
Hi, this is Jerry.
Thank you, Jerry. Okay, you are included on the call. Thank you.
Morning.
Okay, Steve, this is a resubmission from your last meeting. Mr. Riley from Howard Hanna is also online, along with Jerry from the sign company. So I'll turn it over to you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Jerry, are you taking this, Jerry?
Over to me.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes, please present it if you would.
Hi. So following up from the meeting from 2 weeks ago, we spoke with Dan at length and filled him in on the comments from the board. So part of our resubmission package hopefully everybody has in front of them. We did make some design changes as far as beefing up the thickness of the wall sign to make it more of a plaque style sign with dimensional lettering instead of just a flat sign. We showed that in the drawing with a detailed side view. Again, this is the corporate Howard Hanna colors and logo, and the matching colors and logo for the monument sign, very similar. Of course, that's a double-sided sign, trying to show on the side view that this is a dimensional sign. I remember one of the comments from the board being that having a similar style look to what a real estate sign would look like. Hopefully the photos on the site views show that this is clearly not a real estate sign. It's a fixed sign, it's dimensional. It has architectural features to it that are unlike any Howard Hanna real estate sign itself. It does not have photos on it of realtors. It doesn't say for sale. It doesn't have a phone number. It says real estate services. It's clearly not a real estate sign. It's a lot larger than any real estate sign you'll see anywhere on any property. So we were hoping that cleared that up as well from the comments that we heard. We did show the sign more towards the center of the property, seeing the setback requirement from the side property. It would just be offset from the right side of the railing in the front of the landscaping between the tree and the landscaping and the front tree on the tree lawn area. I know that was part of our discussion. There is some visibility kind of issues that we got to work through with a street light pole. There's a couple utility poles plus the tree. So placement of this sign, we're trying to be particular for vision. It does sit perpendicular to the road, so it can be viewed from both directions heading down Washington Street.
You have a drawing of the sign, because the photograph is not very descriptive.
There's
Yeah, we submitted two drawings of the sign, which shows a side view of the sign as well, that shows the depth of the sign, which is 8 inches. It shows the raised lettering on the sign. That was all submitted with it. Should have
That's
that.
just a flat.
I think this is the sign these guys have to put on this lot. And I mean, I think the placement of it makes perfect sense. I would only say maybe if it could scoot another 12 inches off the sidewalk so people aren't tempted to whack it as they walk by, or just kind of like, it doesn't get very close to pedestrians. But I mean, and I think that shouldn't change visibility significantly from the street. You know, you're kind of in that window between the things you're looking through from down in the corner. But I mean, I think this is kind of the sign that needs to be there. The sign on my building is also perpendicular to the street for, you know, obvious reasons that you get attention from motorists if they can see it as they drive by.
Yeah, I think that I agree with George. This is, it was the presentation more than anything else, I think, for me the last time. And this is you know, now we know where it goes. We know how far it is off the road, where it is in relationship to the steps and the entry. You can clearly see the sign that's mounted on the building to the left of the front of the building. I get it. I think this is absolutely appropriate for moving Howard Hanna to this building.
What is the sign made out of? Because I don't understand what the sign looks like at all. The flat drawing is just a flat drawing. The photograph, if it was clear, would answer my question, I guess. What is the material? There's a bottom area that's filled that's different than your other realtor signs.
It's an aluminum sign. The sign is made out of aluminum. And again, I'm not sure if maybe you don't have the resubmittal drawing, which shows a front and side view of the sign, but the sign is made out of aluminum. It's a painted aluminum base. an 8-inch deep sign, if we're talking about the monument sign.
Yeah.
The lettering for Howard Hanna and the logo is 1/2 inch thick raised acrylic. So it is actually dimensional.
Okay.
If you scroll down one page, I think you see the dimensional aspect of it right there.
I'm talking about the
Well, that's
yard
the
sign.
sign on the wall, yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, no, I
Oh,
mean, Steve,
I
I
think
don't
it's
know.
on the side
don't know how
column
you
on
make
my
it-
screen, Harry.
Yeah,
Very
they're
small.
they're submitting it perfectly well. I mean, this is it's a aluminum sign with acrylic letters. It's like,
Going back to the shot of the photo shot where we're looking west towards town, Harry, if you could put that one up. Is that sign, did you scale it in? Because I'm looking at that sign height is 5'9", which is going to be tall from a pedestrian standpoint. I know you want the cars to see it. And then it's almost 5.5 feet wide. And I agree with George was talking about, and I know you have a pitch going on, if you can set it back a little more. Is there any possibility of reducing the size of that sign somewhat? Because that sign is almost like 6 feet tall.
I'll address the scale question first. We did our best to scale it in, but we got to realize we're scaling off a photo, which it's hard to get an exact scale reference off of anything off of a photo, especially from an angled view. But we did propose the sign at the height and width that it's allowed to be. We are on a raised bed, so I can't really do much with that compared to like anywhere else I know on that side of the street versus the other side of the street. That's why we did try to set the sign back a little bit. Again, the question as far as the sign across the street, I mean, we'll move the sign away from the sidewalk, whatever that setback requirement is, or with whatever the other, the Merrill Lynch sign across the street, for example, if there's any question about anybody touching it or anything. But as far as visibility goes, that was something that we discussed as far as the height of it from before. This property is very challenged with the trees and the poles and the light pole and all of the foliage that it's going to have throughout most of the year. So we felt it very important to keep it within what code allows it to be right now as far as height and square footage goes.
And I'm just trying to look at it, scale it into where the location is, because yes?
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Finish your thought.
Oh, okay. So what I'm looking at here in the photograph is that size and proportion and maybe set in a little bit works for me, but I don't think that's what that sign is going to scale out to, because I think the wall there at that point is maybe 3 feet high. So I'm just trying to get a perspective, because what happens is we approve of a larger sign for an area, and we're trying to avoid a billboard competition. So then the next guy comes in and he's got to have a big sign because, look, I got to compete with the guy next door who's got that big a sign. I mean, if we keep all the signage in Chagrin, it's pretty scaled down, and it allows everyone to see all the signage. And that's where I'm going is I don't want this blaring sign in front of the building, where I think it would be more tasteful to have something just a little bit smaller at that location, and it would be visible.
Merrill Lynch's sign is the same width, I would say. I'm just looking, I'm looking out my window at it. It's right in that neighborhood, 5.5, 6 feet wide. I think the height of this, I mean, the top of the sign, it has its own proportion, obviously, but the top of it's like 3 foot, less than 4 feet. And the bottom is, I think, going to get swallowed on an angle. Really, I think they may need that height to get that thing up on the uphill side, to get the actual rectangle that they're, out of the grade, because it is sloping up.
Well, the
I'd like
difference,
it,
of course,
a
on
little
your
smaller too, but they are allowed to do it this size.
but on your side of the street, you're down a little more. This
Yeah, the
house,
whole
this
Merrill
sign
Lynch
is
sign's a
already
little
up.
lower. Right, the whole Merrill Lynch sign is also not, it's not 5'9". I'm sure it's about
4.
Yeah, I think it's.
Four and a
the
half. It's
scale
probably
and
4.5
proportion.
feet tall. Or
This is 5'9" plus almost 2 feet of rise because of the wall. So it's in the 8-foot category. The top of the sign is 5'9" plus almost 2 feet of
2, 3
retaining
feet.
wall.
Yeah.
Wendy, would it help if they maybe took, instead of 2-foot rise here, cut that in half to 1 foot?
Yeah, I think anything bringing the size of that down would help. I'm just trying to avoid a sign competition from both sides of the street. The Merrill Lynch sign, I think that proportion is fine. If we can carry that over to the other side of the street, and just because this is mounted on above a wall, and as a pedestrian, oh my gosh, you walk by and, bam, you're not even gonna see the building. You're gonna see Howard, real estate services right in front of you. And there's a pedestrian transition going on here that I'm trying to think about as well.
This is Bill Childs. I agree with Wendy and Steve's comments for sure. I think it'd be helpful that in this picture, I think that sign is scale. I think that little, just as Wendy commented, that little wall's maybe 2 feet. That sign's maybe 3 feet in this photograph. It'd be helpful to get a scale drawing to just do a section cut through that wall. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate. Then show the sign and show the person. Again, it's just a quick sketch. So the relationship, because I think it's important from a pedestrian standpoint, up and down there, that you're going to have this huge sign that is going to be like 8 foot tall.
I think the wall's more than 2 feet there. It's between 2 and 3. It's closer to.
Well, I think drawings would clarify that. I think it's worth going back so that we can see the proportion, because we've dealt with that with house size. It's really no different with signage. And as I mentioned, this is a big transition area where you're moving from a commercial into a pedestrian area, and I want to be careful about it. And I do think it would be more, an oversized sign is not going to look it's not going to look as tasteful just from an image of Howard Hanna as well. So I would like to see that proportioned into the existing streetscape there.
I would point out that it's your logo and it's your colors, and you're welcome to that, of course.
Yes.
But it doesn't exactly meld into the landscape. I mean, it's a very garish color setup, and that's good for you, I'm sure. But having it be 9 feet tall, which 3 feet plus 5'9" is that's a booming sign. And moving it back, and I still don't know what it looks like. This photograph, it looks like that sign's smaller than your typical house sign in this photograph, and that's not what you're building. So let's see. I would move to revise and resubmit so we have drawings, perhaps photographs that will clearly show the positioning of the sign, moving it back perhaps, and the proportions. A drawing, perhaps a photograph from a pedestrian standpoint would be very helpful.
Second.
In there somewhere was revise and resubmit.
Yeah, we've got it.
I think what's really important here is an accurate drawing of all you have to do is show, and it doesn't have to be complex, just the height of the wall where you want the sign, showing the grade sloping up, and then putting the right proportion of the sign that's going to be in that spot. And I think it's really important, anything with architecture or streetscapes, to show scale, and just put a 6 foot guy. It just has to be a quick sketch of a silhouette of a man, so that you have an understanding of what the relationship is.
Joan, do you have all the comments?
So did you want me to add what Bill says into the?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, please. I accept that.
Okay.
We need a second.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion by King, seconded by Naylor. Childs?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Naylor?
Yes.
Okay. You can revise and resubmit. Deadline for the next meeting will be this Friday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. 97 Carriage Stone, resubmission from 4/28/20.
I've invited Becky Pantuso to become a panelist. Becky, do you have any other presenters joining you today?
Peter Nogue may be from my office online as well.
He is on the line. I'll promote him to a panelist as well. Peter, when you get on, give us a sound check.
I don't know if he's gonna talk, but it's
Okay.
fine. We can,
Go ahead. He's on the line. He's available to speak and join on video if he so chooses.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
So I went back, you guys just saw this, I don't feel like too long ago, but admittedly, I have COVID time frame. So we went back and the Deirdre ring is to say anxious to order these windows might be the lightest statement I could say about it. So we are back as quickly as possible to try to get these double hungs sorted out. I'm conceding and putting double hung. We talked a bit about the traditional and the modern. We were speaking a foreign language, and I think they weren't overly excited about, their hand forced, to replace these other existing windows that are relatively new, meaning the windows on the second floor. And I held strong with, well, you either change those or we do double hungs here. And ultimately that's where we're at. So we put the double hungs and the shutters on the garage, and they are completely adamant about no muttons on that replacement bay window. So I'm not sure if we're happy to do one of two things. If they would just replace it and put in the mutton bar, like crappy removable grills in there to get their approval for a replacement and take them out and move on. I don't want to go down that road. I just want us all to feel good about whatever we come up with here in trying to appease the client. They really want no muttons. I kind of agree that muttons at this point are a foreign entity project. In listening to mostly Bill and Phil last week, I mean, this is my reaction or my proposal is we panel on each side of this window, and kind of mimic a double hung window look with paneling just to frame that bay. But my backup plan, which if you prefer it, that's what this is for, is they just replace the window that's there without muttons. And I think you can see that on that first page, meaning not do any at the very top right-hand corner. Yeah, there. That's what's there. And we can just leave that exact same window size, everything, and just take out the muttons, get a lowy, thermally broken window. This is a 30 or 40-year-old window at this point, so it needs replaced. But what we replace it with is for you guys to guide us on. I'm being as flexible, open, and honest as possible, because if I don't go away with an approval today, I might get browbeaten. So what we're really talking about, I think everything's been approved except this garage right there and then the bay on the left-hand side.
So the Muttons they're objecting to are in the center part, that fixed pane in the center part of the Chicago style setup.
Yeah.
Is that what
Yeah.
she's, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Do you have a preference over just a replacement window? Or sort of, I just don't love, personally, I don't love the kind of skinny column bay window. It feels top heavy. Bill, to your point, I'd love it to, have a stronger foundation. I'm trying
Well,
to,
what I've seen in those houses that are, I don't remember what era this is, but sometimes there's a house on Falls Road right after you turn off of North Main. If you turn left onto Falls Road, the house is on the right, and they have put in kind of a ball ornament or something underneath that projecting part. That's usually because it just looks
like
kinda-
more of a garish, garrison.
That's what they did
style.
though. And that's where we struggled the last meeting was, what does this house want to be? Do you go completely contemporary or do you go to what it was? And I think Bill talked about pilasters. Bill, did you talk about pilasters?
No,
No.
not on this one.
Not on this one.
I don't know, Rebecca. I mean,
So do you prefer,
I'm okay with this.
do you prefer this one or, the top sheet just replacing the bay window?
Can you go to the,
I mean, just taking out that, all the way at the top or the first page at the very top right corner. So we could just leave that and just
take the Muttons out.
Replacement window. I mean, which I think maybe they're able to do without this board's review, but it's a sticky issue, so I want your blessing on it, I guess.
It's a tough house.
Yeah.
So they want to replace that window and they want to take the mutton bars out, correct? They want to do a window replacement without the mutton bars.
That's the extent of their goals, is no muttons, new window. I'm I guess advocating for, do you think we could just add a little wing or width to this while we're there? And honestly, they'd probably be happy if you guys don't like that because it'll save them money. But
well, they'll get more light in. She can still have her window seat, right?
The window will be the same in either option. The other option is just, that's a good. The other option is just panels to look like double hung windows, like getting a paneling detail.
I guess why I fall towards that Chicago style window is it follows the horizontality of the house. So, where the one with the mutton bars, you're squaring up that bottom and it's making it look disproportionate, but I defer to other members of the board. Bill?
Could you pull that to the right? What I would do is I think these double hungs look good. I think that's a good move. What I would do is I would just take the muttons out of this. I would put a panel under here like this. And then I would, sorry, I can't draw that well on this. I would make this solid AZAC, and just put a cap with a crown or something on that and call it a day before I'd put those panels in. And it would save them money.
Yeah, it's like a 10-inch panel on each side of that window. so it felt like a little, it's like a little bit too big.
So
Because I thought the same thing, but we can, I can do that.
So what you do here is you do a stool, run a stool around here and along the side. You do a 4-inch trim here. You do the.
Yeah, no, I've done that maybe once or twice before. I know what you're saying. I'm just saying the above the stool to the right and left of the window is a lot wider than you want in an ideal world.
Right. You break that down by doing proportions. You either put the casing in first, and then you get a reveal. You step it back an 1/8 or a 16th. Then you form your corner, and then you do the opposite side in the back so you get the reveals and the shadow lines. But I think I would just keep that and save their money before I do all these panels and all this stuff. And I would just take the muttons out. I would just trim that however you feel is appropriate. I was just giving suggestions, and then I'd call it a day and save them the money of not having to do all the pulling out and everything. That's just my opinion. I don't know what anyone else thinks.
Well, they're in a hurry to order the windows. It sounds like we're talking about a revise and resubmit here.
Both options have the window. I'm willing, with some blessing, we can come back and show the detail, but I think we're talking about the same windows in either option, and I don't think that's changing, but.
Yeah, I'd be fine with them just taking this window, making it no muttons and letting them move forward. And then they just came back and told us how they were going to trim that. Even if they left it the way it is, that'd be fine, but it'd be nice. It's a nice opportunity to make this a nice, like put a panel under here and get some nice sides, put a little crown or something at the top, or even just a drip edge. And then I'd be fine with that if they were going to order that window, just so they don't get held up.
Well, Bill, can you put that in a motion and we'll let them at least order the window and we can take a look at exactly what they're going to do?
Yep, I moved to make an emotion to, on this elevation here, existing, to take out the picture window and put a new window in with no buttons, and to address the trim around the box bay with panels or some sort of AZAC. And then the rest of it, I move to approve.
Second.
I second that.
We had 2 seconds.
Either one.
I defer to Wendy.
Well, that
Okay.
answers my question. I wanted to make sure that Bill's is the consensus of the board, and that's the direction we'll go.
Okay.
I don't want to make it as nice as we would like to. I don't want to, start shining a light on all the other idiosyncrasies and imperfections. It's picture framed, the shutters are in the wrong place. There's so many things that make us itch about this, that I'd love to tackle. Want to find that sweet spot where we're enhancing it, but not so much that we're shining a bright light on everything else.
I was cleaning a closet and I ran across a box of 8-track tapes. They may want them.
Ouch. Yeah.
So we have a motion and a second. Joan, you have all the comments?
I think so. Everyone keeps adding.
Sorry,
to
Joan.
Okay.
Sorry, Joan. None of my comments need to be on there. You're fine.
Motion by Childs, seconded by Naylor. King?
Yes.
Childs?
Yes.
Naylor?
Yes.
Okay.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. This meeting's been gone on long enough, but I read Barb Christian's column about the dark windows. What's the matter with ARB? And I called her up and said, what's going on? Where are these windows? Sounds like we were putting black windows in every house in town. Ends up there. She was featuring the new house on the corner of Low Street and Cleveland, I guess you'd say. And it's interesting, at night, they're just regular windows, but during the daytime, they're more than just e-glass. It does look very dark. Perhaps we should ask when somebody gives us windows, it's a Pella 605. Well, what is a 605? What is the glass? Because it does look like the house looks like kind of like Ray Charles with his sunglasses on. I mean, it's a blank stare.
I absolutely agree. We've talked about gone back and forth on when we see windows and when we don't, but I noticed it happening in the historic district as well. We were getting heavily that give the house that kind of black, black-eyed appearance. And
Yeah.
I think it's something that I would like to see us move towards.
Is there a designation that can be on the plan so we would have a flag or something? Because we're just looking at plans and there are the windows, buttons, no buttons.
Yeah, I would think they could tell us, they always give you the size of the window usually, and we could ask them to, give us a color or, what kind of glass are you using.
Glass designation. Okay,
Correct.
thank you. That's a good idea. All right.
On new houses, but then also I think there's a discussion on replacement, to what extent people are replacing windows on historic houses as well. They're going to do a full house replacement. I think it's something we could be looking at as well.
Great.
Okay.
Any further comments?
We have 2 people as attendees that have been participating through listening. I've allowed them to unmute, but they still remain muted, so I don't believe there are any public comments.
All righty. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Bye-bye.
Have a good day. Thanks.
Bye.